Good morning, everyone. I wanted to take the opportunity to come here to the Callide power station shortly after last week, and we're all relieved and heartened that no one was injured in what was, quite frankly, an accident the likes of which nobody expected, and the fact that the workers were safe means a great deal to everyone, particularly Colin as local member. But there's two reasons for the visit today. The first is we want to make sure that there is an unwavering commitment to repair and get the power station back online. We want to see locals given the opportunity to work during that repair process, but most importantly to make sure that there is a future here to ensure that there are jobs in the community for the foreseeable future, because it means a lot. And I'm going to get Colin as local member to explain just how much that means to the town. The second is I want to start a conversation about the management and the opportunities to spend money on preventative maintenance in these facilities. And when I look at the amount of money that the government is taking out of these assets compared to the amount of money they're putting back in, I'm not convinced that we are spending enough to maintain these assets. I'll go a step further. I will suggest to you that in many cases these assets are being used as a cash cow for the state government. And the returns that they are getting, quite frankly, are far in excess of what most people in the commercial sector could expect. And I want to know that that's not coming at the expense of maintenance. I want to know that that means that workers have the opportunity to have a job, that they can do so in a safe manner, and we are going to continue to ask questions about that. But I'll ask Colin first to speak about the impact of the generators in the local community, and then Lachlan Miller, who is my Shadow Assistant Minister, to talk about the need for maintenance of these facilities across the state. Colin.
Thank you, David. Well, obviously there has been a major failure of the generator here, C4 generator. Callide Power Station is a most important part of this local community. There are in the vicinity of 260 people that are employed here, and it is most important that this facility be re-established and we have this generator back and operational as quickly as possible. This morning we've met in town in my office with local business leaders, and they have reiterated the fact that all of these people are tied to the economy of Biloela. If we see the failure of this facility, that will have a significant impact on the local economy, and that is something that we don't want. What we want to avoid, and I will be advocating that the current government and the minister, Mr. De Brenny, make a firm commitment to re-establish this facility back to its original capacity.
Lachlan Miller, member for Gregory and assistant to the Leader of the Opposition. Look, my concern is that these assets are important to Queensland, and we need to make sure that maintenance of these assets are continued. The government takes a lot of money out of these assets and puts it into consolidated revenue. I think there needs to be an argument put forward that we need to see more money that these assets generate put back into making sure that they are maintained to a proper standard. We only saw last week the impact of having this go down. It wasn't only the impact here in Callide, it was right across regional Queensland and also in Brisbane. And Queenslanders expect that these assets are maintained to a standard and they get their value for money to make sure that we're supplying electricity right across Queensland.
Good on you, mate. Thank you. Over to you for questions.
All right, so CS Energy and Mick De Brenny did come here and they reassured all the workers that there would be no job loss.
Yep.
Do you not trust them? Or?
No, we want to make sure that the community know that they are respected and they are valued and they are important. And we are going to keep the blowtorch on the government to make sure that those words translate into action. And that's what good, effective opposition looks like. And we want to make sure there's no wriggle room on this one. We want to make sure that nobody says, oh, but look, when we said we were going to bring it back online, it was under X, Y, Z. It's got to be restored. It's got to be restored to full capacity. We want to see locals given every opportunity to work in the repair and then work long term. The level of feeling this morning amongst the business community is one of real scepticism, because they want to make sure that the state understands how important the power generation is to Queensland but most importantly, how important these workers are to them, to their community. And I've given a commitment that we'll continue to come back and ask those questions until the repair is done and that long-term future is secured.
Sure, and what timeline are you hoping for the repairment?
We want to see it start as soon as possible, but I want to make sure that there is no wriggle room on the commitment that has been made. So we want to see this back online as soon as possible. Now, we're heading into a very... traditionally, we don't use as much power in winter as summer, but we're heading into a cold period and the state's grid is going to be tested. It's going to be tested, and we have to make sure that we have good, reliable baseload power as part of our energy mix, and this thing's a pretty important part of that. Let's get it back up and running.
And can you explain what you were talking about, how money is being spent in excess in other places that should be put into prevention?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Well, at the moment, the return on the asset base is nearly 20%. Now, that's a lot of money going into government coffers, and that doesn't help keep power plants operational if you're not pumping maintenance back in. Now, 20%, there's not many commercial businesses that pull 20% out of it. I would suggest to you there aren't many at all. So what we're asking the government is to stop looking at these assets as a way of milking money and start looking at them as an opportunity to create jobs and reliable energy supply. That's what they're for. They weren't built as a source of income for government. They were built as a way of providing power so that people have the power base needed to supply industry, to supply households. That's their purpose. So let's get back to focusing on that. And if you're serious about that, well, you will spend money on maintaining them to make sure they're at their highest standard. And there will be a raft of people who will analyse what went wrong here. People who are far more intelligent than me with far more experience, and we'll let that process occur. But what I'm not going to do is allow two things to occur. And one is a suggestion that this thing isn't important and shouldn't be brought back online. And the second is to make sure that we don't have a proper look at maintenance spending across the asset base as a whole. And when you're talking about the level of money that's going back into government coffers based on what the asset's worth, I would suggest to you there's a little bit of spare cash that could be used to maintain these things a little better.
Sure, and I mean, after today, what are you hoping to see? Is it kind of a situation where, they've made this promise and you'll believe it when you see it?
Yeah, well, we just want to do what good, effective opposition looks like, and that is to hold the government to account on the things that we believe in and then offer up our alternate vision. So we're going to hold them to account in bringing it back online. We support that announcement. We welcomed it in the Parliament, and we're here to make sure that that is delivered, lock, stock and barrel, so that the community have that certainty. And I hope if by me coming here today, it shows the community that they're valued, that they matter, that this is an asset that's not just significant for the state, but it's significant for this part of the world. If by doing that, we can lock that in, that's a big win. The second phase is to make sure that maintenance money is spent in a proper manner, that these assets are something that belong to the state. They are an important asset. So let's spend on maintaining them to make sure they're safe for workers and provide reliable power for every part of the state. That's what this should be about.
Lovely, I'm happy with that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you want those other questions? Or
Yep, yes.
I'm ready to go.
Talk about, we'll go Origin first.
Sure. Look, I want to see this debate and this conversation on whether or not we get an Origin to Queensland. I want to see it have more than just benefits for 2021. Let's end this circus of shopping Origin around other states. Origin belongs to those states that compete, and I would like to see an Origin in regional Queensland every second year. That's what success would look like. Townsville will do an amazing job in hosting it. And wouldn't it be great if regional Queensland could host one every second year to go with that in the long term?
Beautiful. And now could you talk a little bit about the petition? But
Yeah.
you don't have to get too far into numbers.
Well, the response on the ground in Townsville to that petition is the likes of which I've never seen before. I set a task of getting 10,000 signatures, which I thought would take the better part of a month or two. That 10,000 figure was reached within 24 hours. I woke up this morning and we were at 15,000, and it continues to climb. Don't tell me that restoring breach of bail isn't a real issue. Don't tell me that crime isn't something that people are at their wits' end about. And we forced change in ensuring that the first wave of changes to the Youth Justice Act were put through, and we supported it. That's what good, effective opposition looks like. But we asked for just one extra thing, and that was breach of bail to be restored as an offence. And that suggestion came from the community, came from police officers, it came from everyone who is at their wits' end with the youth crime crisis in places like Townsville. And for the government to say that that's not a positive suggestion, that that wouldn't work, well, that just reflects a lack of understanding about how serious this problem is. The stories I heard yesterday on the ground were heartbreaking. People were coming up and were crying about the situation. I had one young lady who's been broken into 4 times, and she is now installing a deadlock on her bedroom because she said, I've given up keeping them out of the home. I just want to make sure that I've got somewhere that's safe for me and my kids to sleep. That's no way to live in a modern, progressive city in a state that should value safety. And the Premier went to the election and she said that she was going to keep Queenslanders safe and strong. Well, you're not very safe when people are stealing cars and breaking into your home across the city. And I don't think it's very strong to see burnt out car bodies on the side of the road. Something has got to be done. And if people are afforded bail, that is a right, not a privilege. That is something that they should be honoured to be given that opportunity. And I want to see conditions set, and I want to see them maintained and enforced, because everybody deserves a second chance. But we are seeing the revolving door of youth justice where people are having 10th and 15th and 20th chances, and it is ripping the fabric apart of that city. And we're going to keep fighting until the government recognises that this is a glaring error in the legislation. Thanks very much. Thank you. All right, Colt, this is where you educate us. Let's go. What do you want?